Okay, now that we have listened to the story of the wise men in the Bible, we have also examined the facts, the tradition and the significance of these characters. And we have also taken a look at some of the evidence that shows their relevance to Africa and African people. Hopefully now we can put all of this into context with a clearer view of who the actual wise men were and to some degree who they were not. This will be achieved by us quickly summarizing what we have learned by defining and setting out the specific criteria that potential candidates claiming a connection or direct heritage to these elusive characters must meet. Once we have done this, we will then be able, based upon the evidence presented in this presentation, to then draw some conclusion as to what the story of the wise man means to African Christianity. So let us begin our summary. To summarize, we will reflect upon 4 very important aspects of the wise man's story, whilst also clearly defining the specific criteria to be met for all possible candidates. Then we will assess this criteria in light of the evidence presented in this presentation specifically relating to African people. Once we have done this, we will then conclude our presentation with a closing statement. Now, here are these 4 aspects. 1. The identity. Who? Whoever these wise men were, they were not Jews, followed stars and awaited a Judaic king. 2. Why? The objective. Their story indicates that their main objective was to bring these gifts and to worship. 3. What? The significance and why these specific gifts. Now, all 3 gifts have much symbolic significance within ancient and modern religions. And 4. The timing, when they arrived. Well, their arrival indicates they were in anticipation, were prepared, and amongst the first to know. So now that we have defined these 4 important aspects and outlined their specific criteria, come let us summarize each one of them based upon what we have learned. Well, based upon the above criteria, we can therefore surmise that we are searching for a people, community, or a nation who were not Israelites but had good relations and close ties to them. They must also have had very strong links with the Israelite monarchy in particular, because they were awaiting a Jewish king who was somehow also relevant to them, and they had been given an audience with King Herod, who had accepted their counsel without question. Also central to this identity must be a people who were traditionally known to worship the stars, but at the same time must have also knew the Jewish God and possibly had already embraced aspects of the Jewish religion into their own faith. And 2. The purpose. Now, if we take the main purpose and objective of the wise men's visit into account, we see that this too can help us to get an insight into their possible identity and a bit closer to knowing who they were, their origins, and the nature of their visit. Also, our popular tradition that claims that the objective of their visit was to fulfill various prophecy provides us too with some insight into their identity. This is based on the fact that these prophecies that do foretell of foreign people and kings bringing gifts to Israel also identifies who and sometimes where they would be coming from. Also the fact that they knowingly used the stars to determine the time and location of the coming of the king and Messiah is also very significant, as no such prophecy exists in Jewish tradition. In addition to this, they had come to worship the child as king, which is not customary in Judaism, so gives us further clues of their possible identity. And how can we summarize the gifts? Well, Now, if we include the symbolic nature of these three gifts into the equation, adding this also to the who and why criteria already presented, this gives us also further insight into their possible identity and origins. But before we do this, let us first reflect upon what we have discovered. So far, we have concluded that the wise men were stargazers and followed the stars to predict events, had good relations and were respected by the Israelites. They knew of and were awaiting a king and Messiah based upon non-Jewish traditions. They saw this king as having jurisdiction and authority over themselves also. And they worshipped kings, or at least this one, not then or now customary in Judaism. So now, when we also include the obvious significance of these gifts, gold, incense and myrrh, to their bearers, the wise men themselves, we see that these gifts helps to narrow down our investigation to discover who they actually were. And finally, aspect number 4, the arrival. Now, to add to this already very strict criteria, we have the arrival and timing. What does this tell us? Now, the significance of when they arrived is not only in the fact that they were amongst the first to know, to visit and to worship the child king, but that they were presumably already awaiting and expecting this foretold Messiah based upon signs in the heavens that were predicted in their own religion, culture and tradition. Why this is significant is that not only were they right, but this was not confirmed even to Israelites until at least 30 years later, and even then it was not accepted by most. In fact, even today, 2,000 years on, the claim of these elusive wise men is still not accepted by many. Therefore, we can assume that they came from a non-Jewish believing people. So, their timing and accuracy here is also very crucial in determining who they were, where they came from, or who they possibly came to represent. So, taking all this into account, together with the evidence presented, I will summarize and conclude with a closing statement.